Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Wednesday, the 22nd of December. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined this lovely wintry morning by Joshua Barrie. How are we doing, Joshua?
It's very cold this morning, Derek, isn't it? It qualifies as winter, but yeah, fine. We're missing the midweek football. Feels strange to not be at Ibrox every 20 minutes as it's felt in the last month. So just still relying on a little bit of last minute shopping and whatnot. Wrapped a few things, but not all good, mate.
Yeah, of course, it was the longest day yesterday, folks. So we're now freewheeling almost to summer now. So yeah, it's all downhill from here on in. Just a bit of housekeeping before we begin. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you haven't already done so, just hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. A number of you, so many of you are doing that just now. So thank you very much for doing so. It's good morning to CGM 55. Aldo, as always. Good morning, Aldo. Stuart Melvin also getting in touch this morning. Right, where to begin, Joshua? The big news yesterday was the fact that the First Minister announced that fans are once again pretty much shut out from football. From Boxing Day onwards, only 500 spectators will be allowed entry. Now, this will be for a 3-week period before it's then assessed. Bad news for football fans across Scotland, there's no doubt about it. It's not what we wanted to see, but it is what it is. There was informal discussions taking place on the back of this announcement between SPFL clubs to try and bring the winter break forward a couple of weeks, so to try and enable fans to return to football games at the end of this period. What do you make of all the shenanigans that was going on yesterday and the big announcement that unfortunately fans are shut out again?
Yeah, really, really disappointing. I think as a lot of people on Twitter said, it'd be amazed to see the data that puts football games as the super spreader that John Swinney, I think, claimed yesterday, and obviously, I guess the travel to the games and all these things come into it, but yeah, hugely disappointing. And I think, Derek, we've just got used to the atmosphere being there consistently. Certainly from my perspective, in the first couple of months of being at Ibrox, I remember the Malmo game, which was the first full house in however many months, and it was it was a complete novelty, and that kind of lasted for a while. And it was just getting back to that normal swing where you forget that actually football last season was played in almost complete radio silence. So just really disappointing. And we don't know how long this will go on for. I know other leagues of Germany, I think they played the first game behind closed doors way back, maybe about a month ago. You just don't know how long these things go on for. But I think for fans, just hugely frustrating that this has happened again. And I kind of expected it, but didn't want to really anticipate that it would happen. But it has again, and yeah, not looking forward really to the behind closed doors atmosphere, because it's I think from everyone's point of view, the spectacle isn't as good. But I think certainly in the short term, the right thing is to play on. Hopefully, the winter break then from now until the end of that gives a little bit of a grace period, if you will, to allow fans back. I think if you stop now, if you bring the winter break forward to now, on the basis that fans can't come in, it seems unrealistic to me that fans will be allowed in 3 weeks, Derek. I don't think any regulations have lasted for that short length of time. You had Jason Leach yesterday saying that the spike looks to be, in some models, the end of January, beginning of February. So I think it's a case of football need to go on. It's a congested fixture schedule. I don't know where you fit the games in if you start postponing games because of this. And just fingers crossed that fans get back in as soon as possible.
Yeah, so many of you getting in touch. Thanks to Geza for correcting me. I think I said it was the longest day yesterday. It was the winter solstice, which was the shortest day, of course. Here comes the summer season, 56. So, I mean, like you said, Jason Leach was speaking yesterday on the situation as well. It seems unlikely, like you, Joshua, for me, that and after that 3-week period, fans will all of a sudden be allowed back into football grounds in Scotland at full capacity. I can see why clubs want to bring the winter break forward. I mean, it's a lot of self-interest that goes on, of course, with regards to that. For Rangers, I know Celtic made a statement yesterday, and a number of clubs have backed their stance on it. I know Rangers would prefer to play the games. That's what the sort of situation I would prefer. Just get the games played, because we don't know when fans will be back in the grounds. If after that three-week period ends, what do we do then when we're trying to fit games in? It's one of those situations. I think you need to play the games, get them played. Of course, remember there's a World Cup at the end of next year. So it's a tight schedule as it is. And then, of course, there's the Sky contract as well. You have to negotiate. It's a minefield, of course. But for me, I think it's clear the clubs have to play the games. Would you go along with that?
Yeah, well, you've also got, I guess, the big factor in this, Derek, which is Sky, and the fact that, you know, Rangers going to Aberdeen and the Old Firm in the second are two of their biggest games of the season. The biggest audiences will be at, I'd imagine, I don't know, but I'd imagine at Christmas time, New Year time. That all comes into it. But as you say, I mean, all we've heard, I think, from people in clubs, I was just reading this morning, Jordan Henderson speaking about it down south, is that players are playing too many games.
Yeah.
And if you have to then fit in more games into the schedule later in the year, you know, both Glasgow clubs have European competition. You know, where does it, when is too much? Van Bronckhorst's side played 6 games by the 17th. Yeah, it's a lot of football. So I think that really the only option is to do it as planned, because hopefully then after these games have been played, you've had your winter break, the distance between the time between getting fans back into the stadium is shorter. I think now if you were to put those 3 weeks in place, or 2 weeks, whatever it is, Derek, the winter break, you know, I don't think supporters are going to be back in early January. I think if you're looking at what, you know, Professor Jason Leach is saying, it's going to be, you know, the spike will be at the end of next month. So a very frustrating situation. Naturally, I think self-interest will arise from all clubs, Derek. That's what, you know, that's what clubs do, naturally. But I think if you speak about what's the best situation in terms of for the league as a whole, when you take into account what the TV stakeholders want, I think you've got to play on, and then hope that by the end of the winter break, as it was planned, it is a short time span. Don't know why I'm saying distance, until the fans get back in.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Just keep your eyes peeled to our social media accounts, folks, on Twitter and Facebook, and the Rangers Review website, just to keep up to date with all the latest goings on with regards to that. We expect more movement on that in the hours and days going forward. Of course, St Mirren have appealed to the SPFL to have their matches against both Celtic this evening and Rangers on Boxing Day postponed, which has been rejected by the governing body. Do you have an element of sympathy for the buddies, Joshua, with regard to that? I know that they're COVID stricken. I can see why they've applied to have sort of the games postponed, but again, it's trying to fit them in. What's your feeling on that?
Yeah, it's difficult because all clubs will be affected at different times, and you know, all clubs can do is follow the measures to the best of their ability. You've seen down south where I think Mikel Arteta has been very frustrated because he doesn't know what earlier in the season deemed the requirement for a game to be called off, and Arsenal didn't have a game called off when they had a certain amount of players out. So I think it's really difficult, and it's not. The thing is, Derek, this isn't an ideal situation whatsoever. This isn't where I think anyone would like to be, football and non-football aside. But looking at what's happened again in the past in terms of football going on, looking at what's realistic to happen, I think the games will only be called off if teams can't really field a team, it seems. And then the winter break will be used, hopefully, naturally as that kind of buffer. So we'll see. It'll be interesting few days, but as you say, frustrating that we're back here talking about the potential of what happens with football calendars and stuff like that, because a couple of months ago you thought that was behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's not an ideal situation. So many comments coming in from you guys. Thanks very much as ever. It's not ideal, of course. The match on Sunday, the Boxing Day game at Ibrox, is the one where the Rangers supporters will be mostly affected by that. It'll be interesting to see who the 500 lucky supporters will be, Joshua, because that's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, picking out 500 fans as if that's allowed. I don't know how the scientists or the politicians come to that figure, but yeah, good luck trying to pick out who's going to go to the game from that figure.
Yeah, I know it'll be almost even more eerie, I guess, with 500 people in Ibrox. I think it was 2,000 that Arsenal friendly in the summer, which is probably the closest that we've had to that number. But yeah, as you say, good luck. I guess the one positive in terms of that is that smaller clubs will be able to keep some gate receipts, which are very, very critical depending on if they're getting any money at all in funding. But as you say, that number kind of is a bit of a cut-off without too much reason, because I'm sure clubs that average 2,000 fans would say, well, the effects on us are going to be just as severe. So yeah, again, not an ideal situation.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to find how many Rangers supporters will be making their way to Parkhead on the 2nd of January. Of course, they'll be wanting an allocation of that 500, that's for
sure.
What
would that be like? I'm trying to think, how much percent of 500? It's going to expose my bad math.
25 or something like that, is it? Or
that would be a story to tell if you got like one of
folks. If anyone on the comments, if you can let us know how many travelling fans can head over to Parkhead for the Old Firm game, that'd be absolutely terrific. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm sure they'll be making plenty of noise, whoever gets into the ground on that day. Okay, let's move on, Joshua, because Joe Aribo is in the news in the last day or two, because reports that Southampton were keeping an eye on him on Saturday at the game. They'd have been disappointed to see him start on the bench, that's for sure. But they're one of a number of clubs that are accredited with an interest in Joe Aribo. He's been Rangers' standout performer this season. I've got a piece on him on the website this morning, folks, where I've said that he's improved year on year. His valuation, Rangers shouldn't be looking for anything less. And this is a conservative estimate of £15 million. I'd be hoping for upwards of 20 million, I've got to be honest, for a player of that calibre, and given the going rate down south. The fact of the matter is, Joshua, Joe Aribo's going to leave Rangers at some point in his career. I think it's just a case of enjoying him while we can. You want to keep him in January, though, don't you?
100%. I guess it all depends on the contract. A lot of people wouldn't have thought that Glenn Kamara would have signed a contract extension. He's obviously a little bit older than Joe Aribo, probably has a similar career ceiling in terms of he's an international. You can go and play at a very high level, higher than the Scottish Premiership. But he signed a year extension. I don't think it's improbable that Joe Aribo does the same. So, hypothetically, if you get him, if you do a 1 year extension, say, for example, or in Kamara's case, it was a 2 year extension, I think, off the back of his form throughout this part of the season, continuing for the whole of it, you think that value would go up. And I guess when you're taking into account how much a player's worth, you're taking into account again what that performance ceiling is, how high they can go, and one of the huge attributes that Joe Aribo has, I guess, from a selling point of view, is that technically he's top level. And as we've seen over the last couple of seasons at Ibrox, it's just been developing, ironing out creases in his game that's allowed him to go and dominate games as he has done this season. But absolutely, I think increasingly you see how important he is in that Van Bronckhorst system in terms of, I think in that Dundee United game, Rangers looked quite lacking that bit of dynamism. That's what I'm looking for.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, in the middle of the pitch. His ability to come and link play and be almost the second out ball in midfield, but then also go beyond, run beyond, as he did at Hearts and Livingston, and link up well on the right. We've seen in the home game to Dundee that he played a little bit more from the left. So he's been excellent, and it's interesting. I think in the same way that Kent took till his third season to really have that. I guess maybe not quite to the same degree, but his numbers were better. I think he had 25 goals and assists, and he consistently performed at a level where you thought this is why that money has been spent on him. Joe Aribo, it's taken till his third season for him to really, I guess, cement himself as one of the key players in that Rangers team whose output matches his ability. So that's just an interesting, I guess, additive in terms of how long it takes some players to adapt to Scottish football, and mature into their prime. But for me, you'd want to keep Joe Aribo as long as possible. Sadly, it feels inevitable one day he'll leave Ibrox, but whatever price he goes for Derek, it'll be quite a nice profit from the £300,000 that he came for.
Yeah, of course. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has been asked in press conferences recently about negotiating a new deal for Aribo. I think it's, I think Ryan Kent as well. I think that is essential. I think you don't want, his contract runs out in the summer of 2023. You don't want another Connor Goldson situation on your hands, Joshua, do you? In the summer, maybe in contract wrangling on, and a player of that calibre, that value. It's a difficult one, isn't it? I don't think Rangers will be short of interest, and I think the board may receive a bid in January. I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case, but given what's at stake at the end of the season, it's a difficult decision if they were to receive a big money offer.
Yeah, well, I think the Goldson one, Goldson probably wouldn't have been viewed as an asset in the same caliber as Aribo or Kamara in terms of Kent Morelos, in terms of his valuation isn't going to be as high because he's slightly older and he's a defender. And I think, the club knew the situation, didn't they? It seems like that anyway, with the fact that the money that they'd have got for Goldson last summer, I guess, wouldn't have equated to the impact they felt he could have throughout the season. And he's been a little bit up and down at points, but I also think he's improved under Van Bronckhorst, and you'd have noticed a lot if Goldson wasn't there, especially in these last 8 games where the defensive record has been so good. So I don't think it will get to that stage. You just hope, like with the Kamara situation, Glenn Kamara, I'm sure, will leave Rangers at one stage, but that contract protects the club's interests as well as his. He gets a better deal, a better wage presumably, and then Rangers also have the bargaining chip of he's contracted for a number of years at the club. So Aribo and Kent are the two pressing ones, and you'd imagine that the conversation around that will increase, Derek, given that this window and the next window are the kind of last two, so to speak, on their current deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, folks, I think that'll do us there for this morning. Thanks to everyone getting in touch. Another busy show this morning. If you haven't already done so, remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, just hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a video when we go live. And also subscribe to the Rangers Review website. It's just £2.99 a month to support top quality journalism covering the club you love. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. We've got an article on there, as I mentioned, on Joe Aribo this morning, where I just indicate how much he's improved since arriving from Valley Parade and why Rangers shouldn't be accepting anything less. And this is a conservative estimate of £15 million for their star man. But keep your eyes peeled on the website, of course. I'm sure the situation with regards to the fans will update hourly. So keep your eyes peeled on our social media accounts and also on the Rangers Review website. Okay, we'll be back again tomorrow, but until then, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.